Competition has been a part of hip-hop since its inception. Hip-hop has 4 elements: breakdancing, DJing, rapping, and graffiti. They are artistic variations on competition and one-upmanship. While they are all competitive, competition through rapping can get much more vicious due to the nature of words and how directly personal it can get. This is especially true with battle rap and diss tracks. Currently, some of the biggest MCs are releasing diss tracks on each other, and it's very interesting to say the least. It's hard to know exactly where to start, but I'll start with the Big Three. It was first referenced in a Drake and J. Cole song named First Person Shooter, when they argue the hardest MC is it K-Dot, is it Aubrey, or me. Now this alone didn't cause any problems. What ignited this recently was a song by Future and Metro Boomin named Like That, which featured Kendrick Lamar on it. There was a lot of subtle disses in his verse, but the ending of his verse is the most blatant. Motherfuck the Big Three, it's just Big Me. What? I'm really like that, and your best work is a light pack. Prince outlived Mike Jack. For all your dogs getting buried, there's a K with all these nines, he gonna see Pet Cemetery. Setting aside the fact I sound like an NPC reading that, it's pretty aggressive. So he's obviously saying there is no Big Three, it's just him, saying that their best work is something easy for him. He compares himself to Prince, who is perceived to have greater artistic integrity than Michael Jackson, even though he was less popular. In this situation, Drake would be Michael Jackson, and Kendrick would be Prince. When he says for all your dogs getting buried, this can mean a variety of things, but my interpretation was that Drake's project for All My Dogs is a project that will come and go and no one will remember it in the long run. Drake was technically the first person to say something about this, which he did at a show. I got my head up high, my back straight, I'm 10 toes down in Florida and anywhere else I go, I know that no matter what, it's not a person on this earth that could ever f with me in my life. Then for some reason, J. Cole released the worst response ever. The song is named 7 Minute Drill. Despite the song's title, it is only a little over 3 minutes long. I'm guessing it's named 7 Minute Drill because it feels 7 minutes long. It's painful. He's still doing shows but fell off like The Simpsons. Like that just feels really forced for J. Cole. He seems like he's kind of out of his comfort zone doing that. Not in a good way. To say Kendrick fell off like The Simpsons is crazy. If you want to say he fell off a little bit, yeah, sure. But like The Simpsons? That's crazy. It's not to that effect at all. Then he said, your second album put to sleep, but they gassed it. Good Kid, Mad City put people to sleep. And then he said, your third album was massive, that was your prime. I was trailing right behind and I just now hit mine. And I don't know if I would personally call Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly. I wouldn't call that the prime. I feel like every project he's had so far was really good. And the most recent one, like not everyone was as into, I think because it had less hard tracks. It was like a little more subdued in terms of flow, but it was still really good. So then J. Cole basically immediately after he released that song was just like, this was a huge mistake. I can't believe I said that about Kendrick Lamar. Maybe he realized like, oh man, that Simpsons bar was trash. That shit sucked. Everyone said he had post-diss clarity, which after this, I think it might be a real thing. I think this is what happens when you try too hard. You end up reaching and it comes off sounding disingenuous. Basically, he apologized at the Dreamville Festival. He praised Kendrick's catalog and asked for his forgiveness. He said, I ain't gonna lie, the past 2 days felt terrible. He explained that he caved into pressure to respond to Kendrick's diss, but the result was the lamest, goofiest thing he ever recorded. I mean, I gotta agree with that a little bit. I kind of respect him taking it back a bit. So he basically scrubbed the song from streaming services, and he said if Kendrick responds to him, he'll just take it on the chin at this point. A few weeks later, Drake responded with a diss track named Push-Ups. Weirdly, it was leaked, and it featured a very lazy delivery for Drake. In fact, the original version was so bizarre sounding, it had tons of people saying that it was AI. Especially since Drake didn't go on social media and say that he actually did write it, and it took a few weeks for him to release the full mixed and mastered version on streaming platforms. He raps about Kendrick, Rick Ross, and Metro Boomin. He said, I can never be nobody #1 fan. Your first #1, I had to put it in your hand. Drake is saying that he gave Future his first song to chart #1. He said, how the f you big steppin' with the size 7 men's on? In my opinion, that was probably one of the best bars on here. It's just too bad it's not true. I hate being this guy. Actually, I feel like it loses a lot of its punch because it's not true. I believed it at first because he is 5'5", so it does sound pretty plausible, but it was actually debunked recently that he wears the 8.5. God, this is so stupid. It was posted on Complex. A company that sends him shoes actually clarified it. He actually wears 8.5 to 9. Yeah, I know this is unbelievably stupid and petty on everyone's part involved, but I do think this is one of the strongest things going for Drake's diss because it was a meme, it was something to laugh at. For some reason, a lot of rappers are really short. I don't know what that is about. I don't know if it's short man syndrome or having to like feel like you have to prove yourself or something. It is probably one of Drake's better songs in years, but as a diss, it doesn't really hit very hard. It's really vague. If we want to talk about like a good diss track, like the whole Tupac and Biggie thing, where he's like, that's why I f***ed your you fat motherfucker. That hits hard because it's like no one knew that. The thing about a diss track that is that effective is it has extreme results. Rapid escalation, violence, even death. It gets serious. Most people do not like to be embarrassed in front of a very large audience. They may feel like they have to take it a step further to make it even. The basis of the song is the whole drop and give me 50 lyric. It is Drake saying to release music so he can give Top Dog Entertainment 50% of his earnings. This fails to hold weight also as Kendrick left him in 2022. It is also a reference to Kendrick's viral video in 2023 where he did 50 prison push-ups. A lot of this is focused on Kendrick Lamar's contract. He says pull your contract because we gotta see the split. The way you're doing splits, your pants might rip. This is a flex of Drake's contract he signed for $500 million to UMG in 2022 while retaining rights to his masters, something that you don't see very often or at all. You better do that motherfucking show inside the biddy. Maroon 5 need a verse, you better make it witty. Then we need a verse for the Swifties. This is a jab at Kendrick as well as Future since they have both collaborated with Taylor Swift as well as Maroon 5. Kendrick is praised as a savior of hip-hop to a lot of people. Meanwhile, he has collaborated with huge pop acts, while Drake is generally seen to be more of a pop star than a rapper. The implication is that Kendrick isn't the savior of hip-hop that people think he is. There are quite a few other small jabs here and there. I'm not really going to go into all of them, just other ones that I think are important or interesting. He says, I might take your latest girl and cuff her like I'm Ricky. Can't believe he jumping in this turning 50. Every song that has made it on the chart he got from Drizzy. Send that little check you got and stay up out my business. Drake is sliding Rick Ross here. Apparently it's because Rick Ross unfollowed him when the Metro Boomin and Future album dropped. I know this is some really petty girl shit for either of them to care. And that fucking song y'all got did not start the beef with us. This shit been brewing in a pot, now I'm heating up. I don't care what Cole think, that dot shit was weak as Drake is clarifying that it wasn't the Like That song which started their beef. And honestly, the more I analyze this track, I think Drake kind of actually cooked. There are some really corny parts, but overall he got a lot of mileage out of 3 minutes and he said a lot of things about a lot of different people. There are still certain aspects of it that are really corny in my opinion. Bars like, this ain't everything I know, don't wake the demon up, are kind of lame and low effort, especially when you're repeating it twice. It honestly sounds amateur. It sounds like something a teenager would write when they had a bad day at school. Also, the interlude where he samples Academics saying, what top 5 you smoking on, Kendrick? Sampling your number one dick writer in a diss track isn't the flex you think it is. It seems kind of desperate. And honestly, he doesn't have to be that desperate. Overall, I think he actually did really well, especially with how many people are against him. This is the hungriest I've seen Drake in a long time. Now, a good majority of Rick Ross's response is filler in my opinion, especially the beginning. I'm not sure what he was thinking with all the flexing. It is the worst way to start off a diss track. You are basically boring anyone before they can even get into it. It's worth mentioning that Rick Ross used to be a correctional officer and he's not even the real Rick Ross, so it's kind of hard to take him too seriously. Same thing with Drake. While he doesn't have as fraudulent of a backstory, he got ethered by Pusha T before, and he's always taking other people's styles. The interesting thing about Drake is he's half Jewish. Now, there's nothing wrong with being Jewish or white, obviously coming from me. It is kind of hilarious because he says the N-word more than anyone else involved in this combined. I think the best parts of Rick Ross's diss are when he's calling Drake white boy over and over. It's just funny. And it's also kind of desperate too because you can tell he doesn't really have much else to say. He also implies that Drake got a nose job. He also gave the reasoning for unfollowing Drake, which you probably should have just left that out. Apparently it's because he sent French Montana a cease and desist. I know, I can't believe I'm following people as a part of this. It's very petty and lame. Also, who the rides for French Montana like this? Who even listens to French Montana? Then Drake did something interesting and really weird. He released another diss track. That's not the weird part though. Basically, since so many people were theorizing that his first track was AI, he played into it a bit and posted a song on his Instagram where he features an AI Tupac and AI Snoop Dogg, which is hilarious because Snoop Dogg's not even fucking dead. You could have just hired him. He literally does anything for money. He's done songs with Corey Feldman for fuck's sake. Aside from being really corny and disrespectful for dragging Tupac into this show, this song is just bad. It's filled to the brim with vague bars that are meaningless and do nothing to add to it. On top of that, he puts himself third on this song after the 2 AI vocals. Collabing with AI is already tacky, but to put yourself third and force people to sit through that abomination is nasty work. The funny part is it has Drake meat writers like Academics saying like, Drake released 2 songs before Kendrick released 1. You're on the clock, Kendrick. The narrative lately is that Kendrick is taking a while to respond. As of this recording, it has been less than 10 days since the first version of Drake's response leaked, with no confirmation that it was actually Drake until a few days ago, when the official version came out. I think Kendrick works on his own schedule with this sort of thing. He seems like the type of person who doesn't rush it. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't respond at all, but I think when he does, it will probably be pretty good. It seems like Drake is doing multiple tracks in order to pressure Kendrick into rushing it, and it doesn't seem to be working. One thing that is interesting though is Kanye decided to jump into this. According to Kanye, Future wanted him to do the remix. The beat for the remix is absolutely sick. He premiered part of it on a podcast known as the Download Podcast. There's quite a bit of filler on this, but there are a few standout lines such as, "I can't even think of a Drake line," which there's definitely a bit of truth to. He makes a lot of music and some of it is pretty good. I feel like in the past few years, maybe even longer than that, he hasn't been making any memorable music. I think the most memorable thing he's done recently was actually this response to Kendrick Lamar, but there are some memorable lines. The one that stands out to me is, "Metro, shut your whole ass up and make some drums." Kanye also says, "Play J. Cole, get the pussy dry." He also states, "Where's Lucien? Serve your master. You caught a little bag for your masters, didn't ya? Lifetime deal, I feel bad." Lucien is the owner of Universal Music Group, who owns Young Money, the label that Drake is signed to. There's definitely a lot of filler in Kanye's track, but I do like it overall. As a diss track, it probably would have been better to have more lines pointed at Drake or Cole, and this is where the saga ends currently. I will most likely do an update video whenever we get Kendrick's response and whatever else follows. If you want to support what I do on this channel, join my Patreon or become a channel member. For as low as $5 a month, you get access to exclusive content, outtakes, as well as other goodies. I'll see you guys next time.
The Band Incorporated.